Hey everybody, welcome back to State of Independence. I'm your host Tucker Berger. Please like and subscribe and share the video to a friend. And also follow me on Instagram and X and Facebook. I will leave some of the information in the description. Today we're going to talk about the Constitution and how it has been whittled away at by our representatives for the past 2 decades. More than that, really, but we're going to specifically talk about the past 2 decades. Now, everybody remembers September 11th, 2001. It was a terrible day, it was a tragic day, but that day was used as a Trojan horse for the government to take power and control and privacy from your life. Now, I don't want to take away from the tragedy of any of those deaths or any people that lost their lives in the wars that followed that terrible event that day. But I want to point out it's very obvious that 5 weeks after 9/11, the Patriot Act was passed. Now, they told us that they were going to use this to keep us safe because they were going to be able to listen into phone calls and emails and other things that could possibly be helpful that could stop future terrorist events like that happened. Sounds great. They started using this technology. They said they were going to stop terrorists. Now, in 2013, Edward Snowden became a whistleblower and came out and said that the NSA has been gathering information on everyday Americans, people who are not terrorists, people who the government was not supposed to be watching, and they had tabs on people for I would like to say no reason, but a lot of them probably could have been political dissidents, people who had been speaking out against the government and the Patriot Act itself. Other people that they could have considered to be radical because of their political stances, depending on how the government was at the time. So, if there was a Democrat as the president, they could have had a lot of conservative people on watch groups. That's it. It was not supposed to be happening. It was being abused. And Edward Snowden came out, put it on WikiLeaks, and said, "Hey, the government is abusing this power." And that's exactly what they'll do every time. RFK said it really well like a year ago. He said, "Whatever power that you grant the government, they will abuse to the maximum." And they have proved themselves true to this every time. Now, a lot of people want to call Edward Snowden a coward and a traitor and a lot of other terrible names because of what he did. But the people that say that are the people that are mad that that information got out. They're mad that their secrets got out. That they're mad that they can't keep us in this perfect little propaganda bubble where we believe everything that's fed to us from the media. And then somebody like Edward Snowden comes in and drops some real information about no, it's not true. Actually, the government is lying to you and they're abusing their power. They got pretty angry about that and they wanted to call this guy a traitor. He got scared for his life and ran and hid in Russia. I believe he's still hiding in Russia. But Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence for the Trump administration, I like Tulsi Gabbard a lot. She ran for president a time before, and she had been on a lot of podcasts last year. And I really liked her whenever she was more of an independent. She switched to being more of a conservative, and to be the director of national intelligence, they basically made her throw Edward Snowden under the bus and call him a traitor to get the job because that's what they want. They don't want anybody leaking the truth out. They only want a sanitized, doctored version of the events to come out to be part of the official narrative because that's how much they respect our intelligence. And I try to have this conversation with people a lot, and they come back at me and they say, "Oh, well, they're protecting secrets, they're protecting national intelligence, and they just can't let all this stuff out." Yeah, I'm sure some of that stuff is probably sensitive. Maybe it should be guarded, taken care of, but a lot of that stuff was just terrible secrets that they didn't want us to know. Julian Assange, he was charged in 2018 for releasing videos where the US military in Afghanistan had killed journalists and killed civilians. That is a direct violation of the Geneva Convention. That is a humanitarian crime. And of course, the government wouldn't want anybody to know about it, wouldn't want it to come out. Well, there was video of this atrocity, and Julian Assange was sent this by, I think, another soldier that was in Afghanistan, and he posted it. And because of that, the United States government secretly put charges on him and tried to have him arrested. And they were even talking about execution because of releasing national secrets and all kinds of stuff like that. But it was just because our soldiers killed journalists and civilians, and they didn't want people to know about it. And stuff like that happens every day, and they don't want people to know about it. It's happening in Israel right now. It's happening in Gaza. They're killing journalists. Earlier today, I saw a video where CNN journalists were attacked by the Israeli Defense Force because they were covering a story in Gaza. And Israel's going to come out and say, "Oh, well, it was an accident." Well, tell me, how do you have one of the most advanced militaries on the earth with some of the most advanced targeting systems and drone technology and missile technology, but you just blatantly accidentally shoot all of these people? Yeah, I'm not buying it. It's because you don't want them to cover the story. It's freedom of speech is being attacked. Our information pipeline is being attacked. They want to feed us a sanitized version of everything. And going back to the Patriot Act, this is not a left or a right issue. This is something that has infiltrated our government beyond party lines. It has dissolved the parties at this point. This is authoritarianism that is gripping past anything that has to do with left versus right. Because George Bush, which you would think is the most Republican guy ever, signed the Patriot Act, put this into place. Obama in 2012 extended the Patriot Act, doubled down on it. And then in 2015, the Patriot Act expired. So we passed something else called the USA Freedom Act, which is the same thing. It gives the NSA the permission to spy on all these people. And then after about 10 years, it expired, or no, not 10 years. In 2020, it expired, and the intelligence agencies now run off an unconstitutional arm of FISA. Now, I think foreign intelligence. Crap, I didn't have the acronym wrote down. Sorry, guys. Can't remember every acronym. But either way, it's a very loose act or law. FISA is about foreign intelligence gathering, and they're using a loose interpretation of it to spy on American citizens, not foreign people. So the Patriot Act and the Freedom Act completely expired, and they couldn't think of something else to like put into place, so they're just kind of using a FISA thing right now. And you're like, "Oh, why is that?" And it's because they have something new. They don't need to legislate this NSA crap to watch you anymore, because the 2025 version of it is companies like Palantir are hired by the NSA to build a database on every citizen. Now, what they're doing is they're taking all your information from all the other government databases, the IRS, ICE, HHS, all the other departments of the government that has a little bit of information on you. They're combining all of this information. And then they're taking the information from all of your tech profiles, the information that Microsoft has on you, the information Google has on you. They're taking all of that and putting it together into one so they can make a perfect little predictive profile on you. And if you're somebody that is somewhat of a dissident or they flag, or, let's say today they want to say hate speech and all these other ridiculous terms whenever you just want to speak your own mind and start talking about some things that aren't popular, like the war in Gaza. Yeah, they're going to flag you and watch you. And part of this is a predictive algorithm to try to predict that you're going to commit a crime before it happens. What the hell? What happened to innocent until proven guilty? Everything is being flipped on its head. They're trying to predict you committing a crime before it happens. If they're doing that, then isn't that basically the assumption of guilt just right off? And we're turning into a police state. You have the National Guard being deployed all over. And yeah, I admit crime is an issue. Some of these cities are total crap. They do need to be cleaned up. But at the same time, that's another Trojan horse. They're saying, oh, we're going to fix all this crime. We're going to do this and that. No, they're hiring a lot more police officers. They're hiring a lot more ICE agents. They're making the military bigger. The military has $1 trillion budget this year, not this year, but for the foreseeable um, budget for the next few years. They have $1 trillion. So the government's getting bigger. The security arm of the government is getting bigger. The intelligence surveillance arm of the government is getting bigger. What does that tell you? They're limiting our rights. They're limiting our freedom of speech. The Patriot Act itself attacks the First, the Fourth, the Fifth, and the 14th Amendment. What happened to protecting the Bill of Rights? What happened to swearing an oath to uphold the Constitution? Because that's not happening. What's up? We've got four amendments right here that are being violated by the Patriot Act that everybody just supported the hell out of for the past 20 years. And it's because it was piggybacked on the whole patriotism idea of, oh, if you don't like this, you're un-American, you like terrorists. I don't disrespect our intelligence like that. I think people are waking up, and if more and more people can be informed and see this crap that's going on, maybe we can stop it. But if not, it's going to get to the point to where we can't even have conversations like this. This conversation is going to get flagged as radical criticism towards the government, full of misinformation. And, we might even get to the point to where we have a social credit score. They have those in China right now. Now, Palantir makes this database on everybody, and our entire life goes to being on our phones, goes to being tech driven, which it almost is there now. We're going to stop using paper money. Everything's going to go to digital currency. Your car is even going to have a feature in it. They already voted to make this a feature in cars moving forward, that they can just turn your car off. So your car doesn't really fully belong to you, because at any time they could call the manufacturer and say, we want to shut his car off, and they'll do it. So that's part of the social credit score. We move our whole life to being digital, and they give us the social credit score. Now, as long as we follow what we're told and what we're supposed to do, we will have a high credit score and we'll be able to move place to place. We'll be able to go over to another state over for the weekend, go camping, go on little vacations. We'll be able to go to whatever store we want. We'll be able to use whatever website we want. But if you're not one of the people that follows the rules, and let's say you don't want to get the COVID vaccine or whatever other mandated vaccine they put forth coming forward, or you don't want to follow this new political agenda that everybody's talking about, you're speaking up against it. You're speaking up against the government. You're calling it authoritarian. You're just doing a lot of things that they don't like. Your social credit score is going to go down, and they're not going to allow you to travel to places. They're not going to allow your car to pass a certain distance. They're not going to allow you to go to certain stores. They're probably going to take away your right to vote and a lot of other little things. And it's like it's all going to be like a little privilege. And if you're not a nice little boy, you don't do all the things that Uncle Sam tells you to do, then your score is going to go down and you're going to be limited. And that is going to be coercion and intimidation to get you to just be a nice little boy and do what they say. I don't want to live in that America. That is not what the founding fathers laid out for us. That's not it. When they started this country, they started it to escape tyranny. They started it because they were having unjust laws oppressed upon them by not just an oppressive dictator king, but a parliament who was corrupt and did not represent them. That is the same thing that's happening right now in a lot of ways. Now, yeah, I know some of that's hyperbole. It's a little bit of exaggeration, but it's really getting there. We are starting to feel like we have taxation without representation because inflation, for example, like I've said before, is just an unconsenting tax. Every time they go to another war or there's another financial crisis and they have to bail out all these freaking banks and all these other companies and all this other planned ridiculous stuff that's hollowing our country out. Inflation is just a way to take some of your money from you without asking you for it. And it keeps happening and getting worse. The past 20 years, inflation has gone through the roof from all of these wars that we've been through. And it's going to get to the point to where whenever you want to have a voice to stand up against going to war, against corporations having too much influence, against profiting off of all of us and just raking our tax dollars in and us getting nothing back for it, you're not going to be able to. When the founding fathers started getting together in the taverns to discuss things like freedom, and they started having their meetings in Philadelphia, and it was treasonous. Whenever they signed the Declaration of Independence, it was pure treason. They were signing their death certificates if they did not win the war. They would have all been hung. But they were willing to put their lives on the line for the idea of freedom and the idea that their children and their grandchildren can breathe free air and not live under the oppression of a king and a parliament that does not represent them, that just uses them for financial exploitation. That this is not the American ideal. This is not what they dreamed of. And they never could have had that conversation under a digital surveillance, a limit to free speech, a Patriot Act. So I challenge you to stay informed and to think for yourself. Do not just allow the government to say, I'm going to keep you safe, hand over your privacy and your freedoms, and I'll do the rest for you. Don't be so free to do so. Resist, because nobody ever complied their way out of authoritarianism.